I want to welcome you from the AI Campus Berlin. We are very happy also to be hosting the first AI Monday in person. The AI Campus, we've been open since April, and this is one of our few in-person events that we're starting to kick off. AI Campus is initiated by Verantics. We are an AI venture studio, and for the past 6 to 8 months, we built up a collaborative community in the field of AI. We are a hub of over 50 companies, and we have startups, enterprise companies, publicly funded projects. We have VCs. We have machine learning technology corporations. And we were happy to and proud to kind of bring people together to work on the field of AI. If you are interested in learning more, you can check out our website, aicampus.berlin. And I hope you enjoy the event tonight. Enjoy the drinks and food. And if you have any questions after the event for the first on-site, my colleague Ray will be here, and I will be here as well. For those online, enjoy. And yeah, I'll hand it over back to you.
So let's get started. Before we get into the agenda, just a little introductions. So first of all, I'm not doing this myself. I have some really cool partners on my side. So one is Philipp Günther from Berlin Partner over there, who actually sponsored the drink today. And then we have Andreas Schepers from the German
Research Center.
DFKI, I only know the German one. Sorry. And we organize AI Monday since 2018, pretty much. And again, yeah, this time in person. Philip, do you want to say some words around the partner?
Hello everyone, just a quick word. I'm the AI Innovation Manager at Berlin Partner. My job is to connect and support AI startups, researchers, and companies in Berlin. And to that end, we've also set up a website, ki-berlin.de, where you find news, events, player overviews, companies, researchers, and more. And of course, success stories and interviews from the ecosystem. So please visit us online.
Andreas, you want to say a word? Sure. And everybody that wants to kind of get into Berlin or get expand the network in Berlin, Philip is the guy, so he knows pretty much everybody in the city when it comes to camping. Hi.
My name is Andreas. I'm responsible for the communications of the DFKI. DFKI is the German Research Center for Artificial Intelligence. We've been doing AI for like 30 years, so way before it was cool. We are here in Berlin with a small lab. Our main site lines up in Kaiserslautern and Bremen. So, and of course, there are a lot of connections already between DFKI, the academia on one hand, the startups, and the industry. So we are a little bit a bridge, let's say, between the excellent research and the industry and the startups. So, and we're looking for potential partners to conduct funded research, maybe interesting for you. So, if you want to learn more about DFKI, please visit our website at DFKI. Follow us on Twitter, or just ask.
And Andreas and the DFKI sponsored the food for tonight. Yes. Thanks so much. And then a few words about myself. I work for a company called Taiwan. We are a consulting company. What do we do? We help specifically, but not only, in the area of strategy to figure out what are the opportunities, the challenges, the problems that are maybe in your business, to optimize processes, to set up your strategy in a new way. But then also we support you on on delivering those transformational projects, and we call this discover, disrupt, and deliver. We usually try to play in those three playgrounds, which is sustainability and circularity. Everything around circular economy. I think if few of you probably start thinking about those topics more and more these days. And we can help you on those thoughts, right? To figure out, okay, what's your carbon footprint? What's circularity? How do you develop your business into a more circular approach? And that's not just recycling, right? It goes far beyond that one. The second one is data-enabled business. That's one of the reasons we're having AI Monday. We believe everything starts with a data-driven approach. And only if you have data, then you can actually do things like machine learning. And who am I telling this? And then, of course, digital technology, which is kind of a broad scope of trying to use innovative new technology approaches in your business. We're trying to be on the edge of everything. And as I said, one of the things that we started with was AI Monday in 2017, when it actually started to get hype already. With that, you may ask, okay, what's the things that you could do in the space of AI? As I said, we're specifically doing things here on the discovery side right now. We're trying to help companies to understand, okay, I have kind of an HR department. How can I use machine learning in my HR or talent processes, right? And then we run exploration workshops. We can do a design sprint, and but not only, we also help you to kind of get into more data-driven, AI-driven company as a whole, and then help you with our large ecosystem of partners to actually also develop the respective AI use cases that you may have identified. Stopping here, that's my contact details. Also happy to share the slides afterwards. And I think with that, I would say let's get into our topic of today. Before we do that, also for the guys that follow us on the AI YouTube stream, I've opened up a Slido channel. So if you want to ask us some questions that you can answer here, and then you see here the answers on your screens. Just open up Slido, use the code AI Monday, or use your mobile phone to actually scan those QR codes, and then we can follow up on those questions. Of course, everybody in the room just raise their hand, right? That's the beauty of in-person events. Yeah, code AI Monday on Slido. Cool. So let's get into the topic. Why did we choose a talent management? And I just want to kind of briefly scan over that topic, because I think if we talk about talent management, it's a little abstract. And if you work in an HR department, and I just stole this one because I like it a little bit, there are multiple dimensions that touch into HR or talent management. And when we say this, we're gonna need to be more specific on this one to actually kind of dive deeper into this topic, right? So this is in German, I'm sorry, but there's multiple processes, and when we say when we follow the value chain, if you will, it starts usually with planning. You're going to look at, what talent do I need probably in the next years? What type of talent do I need? And you're going to get into recruiting, trying to get on and get in touch with those talents out there. You might want to then sign contracts, so you have a whole contractual process. Then those people might start working in your company, and you have an onboarding process. If you hire a lot of people, like N26, for example, did in Berlin, they had on a single day up to 2,000 people starting at the same day every week. Then you might want to start thinking about culture. and how do you actually retain your culture within your company with so much new people joining. You want to maybe, you get the point, right? So it's a lot of different processes and tasks that you actually need to perform as a company, and in every of those processes, you may capture some data if you even have digitalized this process in some way, right? I right now work for a company that is just in the beginning, they still send out paper contracts. Probably a lot of you still do that, but there's something like Adobe Sign, you don't actually need to do that. Makes the whole thing quicker. And I don't want to go into more details, but this is what we talk about HR and talent management. And in any of those areas, you can actually capture data, and you can actually do something around optimizing, reducing the manual work that you do. You can actually use data to predict certain things better, and so forth and so forth, right? And so the question that you may then ask is, okay, how do I then find those use cases where I can actually apply machine learning technology? And this is one of the approaches I like a lot. We call this AI design sprint. It's something that a partner company of us invented called Service 3A. It's being built on the Google design sprint approach, where you bring a lot of people that have a lot of process knowledge into one room, including decision makers, including technical experts, and then you actually develop AI concepts. And before you actually do that, you're going to need to do some framing. Framing just means you take your HR department processes, and here are just a few ones, from planning to recruiting, onboarding, and so forth, and you try to understand those processes and ideate which of those processes are actually painful right now, where there's technology that you can actually use in order to maybe apply it with machine learning. There's canvas and some tools that are coming with this AI design sprint approach, which I'm happy to share outside of this later. But this is one way of how you can actually identify potential processes where you can apply machine learning or use technologies like the one that the gentleman today will present, that already come with machine learning technology sometimes, and so you can apply this. With that, and we thought this is a super interesting topic because specifically HR and talent management, if you think about AI, this is not necessarily something that comes to mind immediately, and also it's not a core competence that many companies necessarily need to build up themselves. So you are likely very open to buy external services because your core product is something else. It's not usually HR, right? And so that's why I think it's super interesting to look into the market to see what's out there. And I'm super happy that 4 companies accepted my invitation to come here today. And we're going to start with Marcel over there from Toledo. Then we have Johannes Erhard from Bluecrest, standing right next to Marcel. Then we have Richard Schenke from iCombine, which over there. And then we have remotely, a true hybrid event, we have Michael Hendinger from Grapple, who's actually in Fürth today, and he joined it already, and he is just listening in, and then he's of course one presenting to you over Teams we have open here. So that's the agenda. With that, I'm talking and head over the microphone to Marcel. Thanks for coming.
Woo!
Yeah, in the meantime, thanks for inviting. Also, thanks for the team for hosting this event. As was said before, first physical event, and also an initiative to move AI and digitalization forward in Germany. I'm very happy to speak here tonight. And we actually want to talk today about the area of recruitment. And the question that we want to zoom into today is actually, who hire, who recruits better? Is it the human or is it the AI, the machine? There's some slides for that. Here's just giving those up.
Yeah, I'm trying to find something. Just 1 second.
That's it. Right, thank you. Yes, so that's the question that we want to look into today. And if you look into the rise of AI, you see it everywhere. It's been used everywhere. We, in fact, use it every day. And there are new achievements pretty regularly. On the other side, you see recruitment as an industry, which looks quite the opposite of honestly. It's really kind of like manual steps are still require human involvement. And we need to ask the question, why is that? Like, why have we not yet passed the state of just simple, CV parsing? Why is there still so much human involvement? And this is the question I would like to zoom in today. So we are going to zoom into the industry of recruitment, but also into the involvement of AI and the human in this industry. So my name is Marcel. I'm co-founder and CTO of Toledo. We offer all-in-one platform for the talent acquisition and management of for companies basically. So this is kind of like a holistic approach to this problem. And today we're going to look into the AI part of our platform, which is just one of the solutions that we offer to attract and hire candidates. Before that, I was managing the IT team and building up the IT team for 11, which has been acquired by SumUp. And my background is studied informatics in the beautiful town of Lübeck. And here you see as a fun fact, this picture, a passion of mine is actually music. I'm playing the drums, this is kind of like my way to relax besides all these AI topics here. But today is not about, music of this kind. It's actually possibly about this noise that this person makes here at most. So we need to look into the situation of HR teams. HR teams are basically responsible for the whole area of an employee, starting from finding or identifying talent, interviewing them, hiring them, negotiating, then afterwards caring for the employee while the candidate is with the company, up to the point of having an exit interview. So it's super long process, honestly. At the same time, these people are understaffed, always. They're in a position that they are seen as a cost center. So this is a problem because it's such an essential point for companies to hire the right talent, right? But yet they're seen as a cost center. At the same time, they're put in a situation where they need to understand all different requirements of departments. Like for example, today there's a person coming, hey, I need a new backend developer. Tomorrow there's a person coming, I need a new inbound sales person, for example. And on the third day there might be even some more extravagant. So I assume that we are more like a tech crowd here today, and I'm sure that it's really not even like for us understandable, like what does it mean to hire like a salesperson, for example. That's out of our scope of expertise. So these people are put in this position for all departments. Of course, candidates are required to be found yesterday, so there's a constant time pressure, and basically this requires them to go into outreach, which is not just posting a job ad and waiting for inbound, but they're waiting for they need to go to LinkedIn, for example, and really approach candidates there, which is a very different skill. This is more like area of recruitment. So all of the situations are basically why this is a typical scenario how people are there, like they're frustrated with the hard job. So what solutions do we have nowadays? We started with the lower left here, newspapers, job ads are posted there. This is something that is still used nowadays, depending on the industry. These were digitalized, like put into online forms. We have the job portals. But at the same time, these are now online, but not yet offering the right service level. So clients are pretty much on their own right now. This is why we have recruiting agencies. Recruiting agencies offer really good service level. They really try also to understand, ideally, what you're looking for and try to help you with that. So this now is high service level, but on the other hand, this is not automated or digitized. And this is where we think there's a gap, which is digital recruiting solutions that work only online, but still have the service component in there. One core skill of all of these areas that you've seen is the matching. So putting together candidates, the right candidate, and the right job at the right time, ideally. So This is an area when we talk about candidates that has to do with NLP, so natural language processing or understanding, which basically deals with the question like what information is inside the text. We have to do with job ads, candidates, CVs. So this is basically why NLP is kind of like the problem domain that we are facing. Matching can be simply solved by something that's a semantical search. Semantical search basically tries to match the similarity of words. That is very simple, very efficient. You might want to start with that. This is an approach that is pretty limiting on the other hand. So you might lose a possible match because there was a typo in the CV, for example. So what are solutions or approaches to make this a bit more smooth, a bit more fuzzy? One approach, for example, is the normalization. We can look into how to get to the core of some words. There are two approaches here. Stemming is kind of like chopping off the suffix of a word to get to some kind of root word. For example, then we can ignore the plural versus singular, but on the other hand, we might chop off some relevant part of that word. So that's an approach that's a bit too rough, honestly. Lemmatization tries to avoid that by really coming to a root word that makes sense. So that might be another approach. Typos, as said before, they are part of every CV, like I've seen them, so they're really there. Like you can calculate some distance between words, for example, to get around that. There's an approach that solves also this sound of how a word sounds. So, for example, think of a name search when you look for a candidate and you just know how their name might be spelled based on how it sounds without any accents and these kind of things. So we want to look for that name and still find it. There are also algorithms that solve that. There are synonyms out there, dictionaries that you could use to, for example, to match JavaScript with JS, because they are basically the same thing, even though syntactically they're quite far apart from each other. And last but not least, Boolean search is kind of like giving the user that control of what is considered maybe similar by offering them the option to say JS or JavaScript. So all of these things you can start and they're maybe a good first iteration, but in the end they're still limited. And at this point I want to ask you, I know you're more like the AI crowd here, but do you know someone that has been approached for a JavaScript position even though they were Java developer, or the other way around? That's the separate gentleman. I see you nodding there. So it really happens. I can promise this, it really does, because come back to the first slide here. HR people, they don't understand this, right? It's foreign language for them, and you can't blame them for that. They have a different job to do. So syntactical search is limited. This is why semantic search is kind of like a new way of doing it. It's about understanding the search. Ontologies or knowledge graphs follow the approach of putting words, entities into relation. We see here on this graph, this is from Nature, 150 years of research and paper, where you see here, it's a bit hard to see, I'll zoom in a bit more for you. There are really like dots or nodes and edges between those. This is an impressive knowledge graph from looking basically papers, and notice the paper here on this graph. We have the edges between them, which follows kind of like the rule of how they are quoted, and we have the color, which encodes the field of study. That is one approach that you could use, because in the end, this is a massive information. This is like, you can really understand what is related to what, and this is basically, smartness in the end. There's a second approach to it, which on the first glance looks similar, colors, nodes. Why isn't that the same? So first of all, we're talking about embeddings here, which tries to map words against a vector. A vector is basically hyperdimensional space. We're talking about 1,000 or more thousands of dimensions. And of course, these things are then made 2D for us to understand. If you follow this link here, maybe in the handout later, you can see that there's also 3D ways of really exploring this. It's pretty cool actually, so that you have a bit of a feeling for what the AI thinks is possibly close together. Because in this hyperdimensional space, you can do arithmetic calculations. You can, for example, say this close to each other, meaning what does the AI think is related to each other, versus arithmetical calculations. What is basically, what can we generate out of this information? So you see here, for example, walking, swimming, walked, swam. These are algorithmic calculations that the AI can do based on this semantical space, on this dimensional space. One really good architecture that's out there nowadays is the Transformers model. The Transformers model is really built for NLP problems because it allows sequential input data, which text by nature is. We're talking about words, text, documents. All of this can be handled by this kind of machine learning model. It works in parallel, which means we can give this a lot of information. And I'll come to in a second, like it has been given a lot of information. There's really crazy numbers out there what people do with these kind of models. And also it tries or it allows to identify what's important in a sentence. And that's really important if you think about it, like the human language is really hard to understand, and not every word in a sentence has the same meaning, has the same significance. So training an AI or it all having a model which allows identifying which word in the sentence has what important, or put our domain, what parts of the CV are how important. This is basically why this architecture is really interesting. And there are two models which are famous. One is BERT, that was from Google, and it was kind of like the first one that really understands what the sentence means. And by that I mean you can remove every single word of that sentence and the AI still can guess it. So if you think about that, that's really cool because you can remove words that cross-reference another word. For example, it, he, or she. And by that it references to some other word. And it really understands this because you can remove it and it's trained to still guess it right. So this was a huge leap in the AI space, only to be topped by the GPT-3 model. Who of you have heard about the GPT-3 model? Yeah, okay, so some here. If not, look it up, it's crazy. It was been quoted it's scary. People were really, first time, really scared about AI. And so we see it really far. Because it can generate code for you. You can write input, for example, hey, dear AI, give me the code for a website showing a button with a red background saying, click me. And it does exactly that for you. Sounds crazy, right? It really is, and it works. It was even so good that it can write articles that look like humans. So people really thought this was written by humans, and it was not. So this is why it's scary. It's quoted as scary. The only thing, what we are not sure yet about is basically, is it really smart? Or is it just copy and pasting some snippets found by the internet? Because this model was really kind of like, it was given the whole internet, really, like billions of data, like it's crazy. Only Google can do this, right? It's like we did. So it's good, but on the other hand, it's impressive that it can generalize, because this is something in AI that's often quite difficult. You train an AI for one particular topic and it's good in that topic, but normally not in other tasks. And this one is. It can write human articles and it can code. So this is really, really impressive here. We don't have all the resources, to start from here because these models cost like multiple millions. Like this is really super expensive to do. So we can orientate on some models that are out there. For example, Hugging Face website lists 82 models that are out there. And if you go on the search pages, even over 20,000 models in different configurations. So you really have, if you decide to not start from scratch, it becomes more like a decision that you need to make. What are your criteria to find the right model for you? So here you would need to look into what is really the task at hand. What should the AI really do? Because the real AI is trained with a different kind of background for the task. Should it be multilingual? Is multilingual actually a problem that you try to solve? And if it is, should it be solved by the AI, or is it actually solved somewhere else in your processing? How context aware should it be? Is context relevant at all? Like, is it important to understand what else is in the document, for example, and how should it get other relevant information that is linked to each other? So fine-tuning and how easy to deploy are also like important questions, because you typically don't want to take one of these custom ones, but there are many out there that you can start with. There are further design questions, but I'll skip over this because it's given time limits today. So general advice is, start somewhere, have a baseline, and then iterate, because this is exactly what the big companies also do. We see on the left, for example, Google, they launched BERT. And they see here, I'll read the sentence on top of it for you. Can you get medicine for someone? Pharmacy. That was the Google entry that we had here. A bit of a weird query, but this is what people do. And on the left, you see a general, weird, well, right? So this is basically on the left, some general way of getting medicine. On the right, you see how someone should get a recipe, like the family member of someone. So what you see here is basically they focus on the word someone. And that's real smartness, honestly. And this is why, this was the word on the left, by the way. So this is why it was really a big leap. Looking more to the HR space, which we're talking about today, we see LinkedIn launched at the end of 2019 and also a bit later in Germany, a skill quiz. By that, they are basically generating more data around how good is someone in some skills, and we really can see that they are actively iterating to nowadays. And yesterday, I looked actually in LinkedIn, I looked for one particular tech skill, was Java. Actually, we are built on Ruby, by the way, but we take Java always as an example. And I saw like page, what was it, result number 50, there the results became a bit inaccurate. There was like a Go developer scene, and there was an Android developer scene, which you might argue, well, Android's not too far, but if you look really for JavaScript, Java, it's the same mistake. If you look for Java and you have a skill database like LinkedIn, then you wouldn't expect on 50, on page, on result number 50 to have already a result, which is not so accurate. So you can really see these companies are also actively iterating over it. A word about Toledo. We use semantic search. We have an AI which understands the NLP part of it. And afterwards, we put it into an algorithm which we wrote, which is then about the remaining part of the matching question. And afterwards, we have also like a kind of like human readable scoring approach, which is also an algorithm that works here. This whole thing is built on skills, but also other things are fed into this machinery, which is basically like the behavior on the platform, for example. Coming back to where we come from, is it all about AI in this industry? We see, for example, interfaces of these two famous companies, Google on the left, Booking.com on the right, and you see how different they look. But this is in the end the input of your AI. On the left, you see one field, on the right, you see multiple fields, different criteria, what to look for, and this is one decision that you need to make. And that's also why the cooperation between product and AI is actually in my opinion, that is often overseen, but it's super essential. Coming back to Toledo, one question that we faced initially was the question between an available candidate and the best fit. So we talked to people, and we asked them, what's more important to you, the best candidate out there or an available candidate? What do you think the responses were?
Best.
Best. I saw best here. Who's for available? Yeah. Who's for best first? Okay. Yeah, okay. Available? More for available. Interesting. We saw some undecided. That's what's happened when we did the survey.
Probably the best candidate that's available.
yeah. True. So, but still, some people. So we asked this question to our users because we didn't really went to the whiteboards, did some crazy mathematics there to come up with some kind of formula that solves all of that. It didn't work because we did some user research that found out people are different. So this is why we came to the solution that there are people that say, I want only the best match because they say, I will make the candidate available if it's required. There are other people that say, don't waste my time. I don't want to have the best match if it's not available. So really both exist. And that's why we put this into our product decisions, not an AI decision per se, to really give you the option of how you can filter for that. However, we have a recommendation which considers both. So basically, it's part of the AI, but you can fine-tune it via the product interface. Another example is we have is bias. Oftentimes, points to talk about. The AI itself is built on skills, so by that, it should be neutral, based on some foundation which is neutral. But in addition, we give a mirror to our users by enabling a bias filter, which then blurs out the name and the pictures of people. So all of these are product decisions. And this is, I think, a point that is important to keep in mind. It's not just about the AI, even though the AI can do a lot. So coming back to the question I started with, what about the people here? Recruiting is a human industry, it's human by nature. We're dealing with high service level that is required, we're dealing with people on all sides, the candidates, the person, and the company is also people that hire there at the end. It's an important decision for both of them, for the company's success, but also for the candidate, what career step is my next step? And oftentimes this is based on trust. So this is why it's people business in the end. So to answer the question, who recruits better? Is it the human or is it the AI? Aledo's answer is it's really the combination of all of that. Smart product design, a good AI that solves the problem that you want to solve, and the human touch. Thank you.
Yeah, any questions?
Yeah. Your search engine gives you like a different version of Recruiter or anything, for example? Is there any difference between the two?
Yeah, I mean, so we went through different iterations here, and for us, it works best if you really force the recruiter already to think about what is really like important, because oftentimes they are basically having many wishes that they want and come up with unrealistic questions. So by asking them the question like what's must and what's nice to have, they already need to think about some kind of prioritization. And we're basically thinking about still simplifying it into some Google-based approach so that we still guide the user a bit more. So at the end, coming to this kind of interface still, but we want to simplify it. By, for example, one field, and then maybe in the next step you have this more advanced thing. Yeah, but this is just as the interface at the end. It still works differently in the scenes.
May I ask, is it primarily just about matching skills? Because are you also looking at how good in terms of not just experience, but grades or universities or any kind of how good within the skills set is matched?
We do, yeah. So we have different, and it's quite complex. Like if you look into all the parts, I focused a bit on this part today, but there are other things that are also relevant. However, the skills play like a major role basically. There are other things like behavior on the platform. As I said, like how good is a candidate amongst their peers basically. That's just
Because there it's very easy to come into bias problems.
Yeah.
What's a good metric and what's a shitty metric?
Yeah, we have different things that run there in the background, like things, for example, like how what candidates currently like how outstanding is. So we try to do it user-based basically, so that we really go the way that the users use the platform.
I wonder, what is the tool that you use? Like, do people who are looking for jobs have to register on your website first, or is it like on the internet?
No, you have a good question. So the product works like this, that we're two-sided. So we have, I've showed the client side today, the company side, but the candidate also have an interface where they can sign up. We actually pass the CV through an AI as well, so that things are pre-filled and then they can go over it and correct it if necessary. And basically this, brings us in a situation that we have pretty good data about the candidates, so it's not crawled publicly.
Yes. And I think when a user from the candidate side upload their CV, and I guess you build it, and then you have some sort of structure, I guess, and you put their skills or whatever. But how do you get the data beside their CV? Do you, for example, follow the links on their CV to add more background, or just text on the CV?
Yeah, we take the text on the CV. We could do more background checks like that, but on the other hand, we still believe in this human involvement, because in the end, a human will check the CV, and this is still what they want. On our platform, you can always get the CV of a candidate, because it's kind of like the Visitenkarte of a candidate, and this is why we take this as a main source. But the candidate afterwards can add information that they find relevant and correct the one if it's not properly extracted.
So after the CV is built, candidate can see how the system builds their CV and can use it?
Yes, they can. Like it's completely constructed. So a question over there in the back. It's still valid?
Just I would coming back to the question from the first. If you incorporate not only the poor text, also the different skills, experience levels, and maybe there's a difference between 10 years of experience in one field, and a person is maybe it comes from the job position or from the skills there, and maybe a certain job position is associated with a lot of different skills, for instance, that are usually required for this job position. Are you taking this into account, and is an AI-based system used for this? Could you stress a bit more about this one? And the second point, you said something that you're proud to be unbiased. Do we have dedicated measures to be a non-discriminative approach?
So the first question, it is, you saw this like graphic, right? The embedding space basically. So this is how you can visualize how it basically works, you know. So we take into consideration what is typically involved when someone like requires a certain skill or has a certain track record. So yes, the answer is yes. And the second question is, what we can say about that is that the bias filter, at least in German countries, is not used that often yet. So that's interesting because when we talk about bias, we oftentimes talk about AI and these kind of things, but actually it's also this discussion between humans. Like we're all biased, honestly, right? We just don't know where we are biased. And just the HR space is now more documented or more talked about. So that's a data point that I can give you as an answer, basically, that the people that still use the product decide not to use that. So it's basically, you know, the mirror to basically say, hey, you know, before we start that conversation, why don't you actually enable that?
Great. Yeah. Thanks so much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
And with that, thanks, Michael. We're coming to our next speaker, which is Johannes Erhard from Bluequist. And yeah, when Johannes and I talked about, I immediately found this use case that you guys touched on very, very, very exciting, because how often do you actually look for the right talent within your company for the specific project or job that you're currently trying to do? And usually you open up a new role because you know that there's multiple people that may perfectly fit to this role that you're looking for. But then how do you use this? Usually HR business partners are kind of, you know, they know their people and then they assign them, right? This is usually how it works, at least how I know it. And all those guys are coming in and giving us a much better solution, and you explain it much better than I.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting us. So thank you so much for your attention. Nice to meet you all, guys. Thank you, Joey, for inviting us to speak today here at this event. My name is Johannes. I'm one of the co-founders and managing directors of Bluequist, and we are a human potential management platform. We make human potential.
Over here, otherwise they don't see you.
We make human potential data visible, tangible, and actionable for companies. So actually, I think this is a quite good overlooking to this from Toledo, because Toledo talked a lot about skills and talent matching. And actually, our platform is used when the talent has entered the company and now needs to be developed. People based on different traits, not just skills. So let me ask maybe one question. What do you think next to skills, what else is very important when it comes to developing talent? Ambition, yeah. What kind of part of character would you attribute this to? Personality, culture? What do you think? Is it
only between personality and culture, like the ambition to grow as a person?
Yeah. Other opinions?
Curiosity.
Curiosity, which is a clear personality trait and motive. Yeah.
Mindset.
Mindset, culture. Yeah, absolutely. So our question at Bluequist was, before we started this company in 2018, how can we make this tangible? And all the founders shared one common trait. They at one point felt pretty displaced in a culture, and sometimes this led to pretty bad outcomes. For example, in my case, a law suit. So, and it was based on culture. So I thought, how can we make this better in the future? And that's why we founded Bluequist. We want to empower even organizations to unleash their full potential. So who are we? We are a team of different people that have different skill sets. Technology, ML, machine learning, AI, psychometrics, psychology, organizational design. And we help our customers really make their human potential tangible. Our first product principle is setting product up, the platform up for companies running, but we also do advisory, we do profiling, and we help in finding the right talent for the right spot within the company, and we help leaders to develop their teams in a better way. So I want to start with the topic of every person is unique, not just skills. It's personality, it's traits, it's motivation, it's cultures. And making these tangible, it's a competitive edge to companies in developing their people. So that is what we want to do by making these needs really tangible, visible, and giving them a base digitally so that every person in the organization can work with it on a personal level, on a team level, and on an organizational level. So safely identifying this potential is a key aspect. And safely, I mean reliably and validly. So how can you do this? This is really a key aspect of what we're working on every day in the back-end, front-end, and also in our psychometrics team. So the thing is, mutual trust here is a construct, and the establishment of mutual trust in transactions in business is what we achieve with our customers. In technology, when you have a transaction, you want to trust that this transaction is safe, right? That data gets through and back on a safe line. We enable this in terms of what traits, what character traits, what potential has a person in conjunction with security norms like DSGVO and GDPR. And we start smaller companies with individual teams and make this available for them. So what's the topic in transaction between people? First of all, you want to trust. You want to trust that you make the right hire. You want to trust that you have the right person in your team. You want to trust that you give the right advice with a person, that you approach the communication with the right demeanor. But the more trust you give, the more risk you also have. So these two things are significantly associated, trust and risk. And the stronger and more reliable trust, the lower the perceived risk is. So creating higher trust in teams creates more efficiency and performance. So building trust and minimizing this is something that Bluecrest helps our customers with. So today, clients like Credit Suisse or Biogen, and some teams are using this, and team leaders have access to the data day by day in order to make better transactions and behavior in terms of team decisions, in terms of communication. I really think the same as Toledo. The technology is not the main driver. The human should be the main driver, and therefore technology enables humans to do better jobs. That's our premise. So what elements must be present for trust? And this is, I think, is very important when it comes to talent management. When you have a normal system like a transaction system for finance, for example, you especially need a system like trust and beliefs to work. But when it comes to human systems that touch the human domain, you have two sides. You have to make sure that the human-like trust and beliefs are valid, and the system-like trust and beliefs. So I assume many of you know these: reliability, the belief that specific technology will consistently operate. We have consistent results. Functionality, the belief that specific technology has the capability, function, features to do what needs to be done. For example, if you want to book a transaction on booking.com and they receive your money, you want to make sure that the booking is right and your money is not lost. So, and helpfulness, the belief that specific technology provides adequate and responsive help for users. That's very important, otherwise people will stop using any system. On the left side now, when it comes to talent management, for example, also talent matching, and for example, personality matching, you get to very different set of attributes like integrity, the belief that a trustee adheres to a set of principles that a trustee finds acceptable, right? It's a very different thing than reliability on the other side. Ability, the belief that a trustee has a group of skills, competency, and characteristics that enable them to have influence within some specific domain. So we have here talent, which is skills, which is personality, which is fitting of culture, so that someone fits into a role or into a team and is maximum performant and ideally also happy. Competence in the same area, and obviously benevolence is also important for many clients. Believe that the trustee will want to do good to the trustor. Here, for example, one example is our system is used, for example, to also evaluate personality in terms of recruiting companies. They want to make sure that culture is fitting. When, for example, 100 or 200 people are screened, and the talent and the skills are matching, is the culture also matching? So what does our product do? It does measure, match, and grow. It measures different of these traits. It measures personality, it measures culture, it measures preferences, it measures psychological potential like optimism, it measures competencies, general competency models, and specific competency models that our clients load into the system and it measures well-being. All of this is optional. Companies can turn it on and off, modules on and off. It's used for staffing and developing employees and teams correctly with the right amount of onboarding and the right amount of enabling. So we also go into companies and help them in process adoption of the system. You can see like a SAP-like approach, system plus advisory. And our key clients are using data at the organizational level, for example, to determine anonymously how well-being is structured across 500,000 or 2,000 people, and in which areas support is needed most. These are a few of, I will get to the machine learning part. After the function part, I'm not a CTO, I'm an organization designer, so if you have any deep questions, let's see how far we get today. So it does personal development, discovering talents and potential with a selection of models. For example, you see here a few different of these. We have integrated the 9 levels personal value system, which is one of the most validated cultural value systems globally. We have the Reese motivation profile, which is the most validated motivational profile, which identifies different traits. This is one trait, it's essence, maybe not the best one for working environments, but there are all others like order, like curiosity, tranquility, and we have competency models in there. And important is that all of these systems obviously create individual data points. So these feed our natural language processing.
Will you collect the data?
Collect?
The data.
Are we collected? It's being collected, as currently it's being collected by assessments. At the beginning, during, or at the end of a lifetime of employee journey. And for systems like this and this one, there also are on the market hundreds of thousands of data sets already. For people that have done these, we can also import them. So into a more digital system.
Can you give an example of one of those short, like, role assessments? I know, I imagine I'm playing Candy Crush and then the app tells me I'm not resilient enough. Can you give an example of how these assessments look like, that they tell you like something about optimism or creativity?
Well, I have no example here right now, but I could show when I log into the platform later. Actually, so it's validated psychological assessments. So it asks you indirect questions, direct questions. Behind them are evaluation models. They are valid and reliable, tested by factor validation, for example. And there's always a norm behind the system. So we're not talking about machine learning at this point. We're just talking about integrating models that are reliable and valid, so that we have a valid basis of the database line. So this is, for example, like one of our profiles looks. It's zoomed in. It's not the actual, like how the platform on the web looks, just to show you in terms of how leadership competencies are structured. And the most important thing is our clients import their own competency models. So it's not like we say them what their main competencies are, but for example, Volksbank is having their own competency model, or other banks having their own competency models, and we make them digital for them. So imagine you used an Excel for 10 years for competency modeling, and suddenly you have a scalable system that scales to all employees for competency models. That's quite a difference. And we're also not yet so far in the German domain in terms of adopting these digital models. So we have a lot in our pre-sales to talk about how can this work, why should we change from Excel, what is the effort of consolidating many different data sources into one system. So it's a lot of evangelism that our people need to do at clients, and we work on this every day. Yeah, so here you can see a team view, and this is being used really by many users that just check on their team in terms of what are preferences for the next role assignment, or the next team discussion in terms of, for example, expert, as generalist, speaking, listening, theoretical, practical, and our platform shows these on the different outsets. And this makes communication much more efficient, as far as we know how it's being used. The next thing is our learning platform. So when you have a profile, you get recommendations for learning, and you can also, for some clients, this is a beta. This is being rolled out at the moment. they can also then validate in terms of learning. This was helpful for me, this was not helpful for me. The motivation course was interesting based on my preferences, and our future roadmap is to integrate external learning sources. Also at this point, to not just focus on the personality level, but also give employees the option to develop and to grow further. So we want to build an intelligent assistant for potential development. We are right here now, creating data and well-structured information to create the first real insights. And until 2024, our idea is to have a real system that creates intelligent predictions for any user in the company when it comes to effective leadership and development. So what's on the future roadmap for AI? We think that assisted learning content is super important. Constant learning is one of the key skills of today's changing world. Most of our clients ask the question, what content do we need to deliver to our employees in order to make them more competitive and provide? So this is one thing. Psychological potential trainer is a concept that we're working on, especially in times of Corona and the crisis we had. We saw a lot of our clients increasing when it comes to psychological potential. We have, especially in Switzerland, clients that use this module because our German customers don't want to use health and well-being and potential modules so much. It's too precarious, I would say. But when it comes to other countries, they are much more open to support the health of employees. So we're working on machine learning-based systems here. Transformative leadership learning nuggets for leaders, how to lead my team better, and generating AI-supported development recommendations. And the system is currently in place, in progress. I wouldn't say Lucas is machine learning fully equipped right now. We work on a lot of other things. Currently, we check where we can integrate it with a real use case that makes sense. And surprisingly, we also integrate MIT ontologies to create a machine learning-based system in our system. And I want to show you how this, for example, how this looks really when we go to the system level, because actually Toledo said everything I wanted to say about natural language processing. So our system is currently, if you look at the general status in a company, you have few skills lying around different sets of Excels. You have paper skill sets. You have in the heads of people's skills, right? But you have no real database for the skills that are available in the company, in most companies. There's potential that you have maybe some KPIs that are being given to the performance of people. You have some assessments in place. You have maybe a role management in place that has also different data sources. And what we're currently approaching to do is to make all of these data sets available. In Bluequist, we start with a really discrete set of data in terms, for example, you can see organized, which is a character trait, leadership competencies, which is a competency, extrovert, which is a personality trait, happy, which is an emotion, and behind all of these are either modules or assessments that measure these. And having them available for the whole team or the whole department makes this accessible, actionable, and visible. So when, for example, Jane is a candidate and she applies for the role of project manager in the team research, we can compare this to other people that apply for the same role and see who is the best fit for that role. Not just in terms of skills, but also in terms of personality and culture, and make this available to the hiring managers, to the business partner, to make informed decisions, but also to create as bias-free as possible decision-making process, and to create a transparent decision-making process along the way of finding and developing the right talent. So, yes.
So, so the candidates would just do some tests or something to see what traits they have, or how do they work? Because with some of these candidates,
Yes.
they have to then pass a psychological test or something?
Well, Yes, our clients use this and assign different modules to different people in the company or to candidates that have already gone through the recruiting process. They do tests and assessments, for example, on motivation and on competencies, and this data is then being fed into the system and compared to other data. So we do.
So the candidate is expected to do some assessment.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
And are they rejecting that, or?
Normally, no.
I'm a little curious about the cultural analysis. For example, if you're writing literature way or writing a poetry way, how you could recognize with this kind of emotion or the culture, even the different language, different background, they write in a different way. So how to recognize it different? For example, we write in German, we write in Italian, or we write in English, or how to recognize from your machinery part. Can you more clearly with this?
Yeah, our cultural system, which we integrated, is called 9 levels of value systems. And the important part about this is that it's being validated in a few cultures. So it has been validated on European ground, it has been validated on Chinese ground, and it has, as far as I know, been validated on American basis. And it's a number of questions that you answer. It's 120. You answer all of them, and they derive a culture based on do you know the reinventing organizations? Anyone? Yeah. So it measures this in a more detailed level in terms of the cultural value system that a person brings in 9 different levels.
So that means you also give the regular question and you write the different answers.
It's a multiple choice in this one, yes.
But like, for example, a candidate could apply, right? And he would have to answer all those questions.
Absolutely, yes.
And then, let's say the candidate says, okay, I'm going to look at what the culture of the company is. I'm going to adapt my answer to those questions. So that's very easy to do, right? I mean,
you could try, but then in these models there's inbuilt validations between systems, so counter questions and negative questions. So you have to put in a lot of effort to do this, fake your answers. And from our experience with clients that happens seldomly and rarely, what our system also does, it takes into account so the models and the profiles of different people in the company, for example, in a team, and it derives the culture of this company, so it matches the candidate against the culture of the team. So, and obviously anyone can fake a test if they put a lot of effort in it. So that's always the case. The same as you can also fake a CV, which is also the big problem in what we have right now in the industry. So there's always this factor involved.
well, what happens if you give contradictory answers? What does the system do?
It gives the indication to the hiring manager or people manager that there might be this at play, that contradictory questions have been posed and that this needs to be taken into consideration in reviewing the results.
So are you saying that for each assessment, you measure the score and you can predict if someone is taking the answer according to previous data you have collected?
Basically, I would say yes. I would have to ask my CTO specifically on the question, but
it can be sometimes, I guess, difficult situation because maybe it's some imperfect person who's not fake.
yeah, we're not labeling the perfect world here. Definitely. We're trying to give the best resemblance for these questions and enhance giving data as a part of the decision-making process.
Yeah. My last question. Okay. Is the system capable of making biased hiring visible?
Biased hiring visible?
Yeah.
Ooh, good question. Yes, it can. Yeah, it's not an inbuilt feature, but basically, if you adhere to the recommendation the system gives, and the hiring is done differently, you could argue that it's able to make biased hiring visible. Yes, and we also have a feature like Tomato that, for example, internally we can turn off any names and gender and faces if this is required by a company. So this is inbuilt. We haven't yet built any feature that makes biased selection visible. And we don't intend to do so right now.
One last question.
I understand that you rely on some personal traits and cultural models that have been very well established based on multiple choice.
Yes.
And I think these have been running for, let's say, 20, 30 years. And I understand this is a very, very valid system and it's very well documented.
Yes.
Also the question regarding the misuse and those kind of things. Have you plans to go beyond this? Because this multiple choice system also has known and well documented disadvantages. Are you planning to use AI, for instance, to use storytelling or whatever in order to get an even more precise picture of this?
Absolutely. Our data science team is working on approaches to get rid of these questions and go into storytelling, into simulations, into context-based questions that are harder to well, if you like that, fake. And our team is also working on the concept of getting rid of doing individual tests, but combining all of them through a machine learning system so that you don't have to ask 2, 3, or 4 individual assessments, but just one simple, ideally short one. But that's a future that's quite far away, I would say.
Far away. So when? 2 years, 5 years? Next talk?
Ideally, we talk about 2024.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. Let me see what else I also wanted. So yeah. So why using a knowledge graph to make data smarter? Machine needs flexible data, so that's where the learning could be done on the way and not priority. So having a system that recognizes all of these traits and is able to learn from the associations is where we wanted to go. Okay, I can skip over this because I think time is already of the essence. Yeah, so that was my presentation. It was nice to talk to you. Thank you for your attention and your questions.
I think we covered all the questions. Any last question, to be honest? Yes, please go ahead.
I don't know if you finished your last question if there was can you please tell me something about the economies and because I mean from a negative point of view, I mean I picture like Amazon user list, like delivering boxes and patches and so on, so you can put all the positive aspects and the negative aspects, and then like motivation, it's always a bit of definition, how to find the criteria, and so it could be used in a different way.
As any tool, you can use it negatively and positively, absolutely. But that's for the kinds of clients that use it, right? So we have quite a number of recruiting companies that are using this to match people to jobs, not just based on competencies, but traits and culture. And we get quite a good feedback by hiring managers why this makes sense, not just to look at really company-specific traits like culture, make this visible, and then have an understanding if somebody fits not just by competency but also by culture. So this is one group. We have a group of banks that are using this to assess potential and well-being, and then contract the right coaching and learning courses to increase certain things like emotional balance in their company. So they want to understand how can we really support our clients. So we only see really positive use cases at the moment being adapted. And well, that is a biased question. I would say answer I would give that we are a very ethical company and we have high standards on this. So we constantly iterate on how we want to implement and enable companies to use this platform. And one of our strategy steps actually is to think about establishing an ethic, how would you call this, a premium people that looks at these questions more thoroughly with us. So not just from within the company, but also without the company. So from without the company. This is my partner and managing director, Dominic, and we have a lot of discussions about this topic quite often.
Cool. I need to make space for the remaining speakers. Thanks so much, Johannes, for coming and all the questions. I know there's some more. I mean, that's why we're here, right? So grab a beer, grab a drink afterwards, and then continue having the discussion. Thanks for coming. Really helpful. It was really interesting. Good. Now to our next speaker, Richard. Richard and I met 2 years ago already.
Almost 4 years ago.
Almost 4 years ago, but we both worked for Deutsche Bahn, and you guys were preparing for your project there. And when we set up this event, Richard actually came to my mind immediately. So that's why I'm so happy you came. I know you have some special agenda for today, so over to you. Thanks for coming, and yeah, please take this one.
Thank you very much. What's the energy level? Everybody? Yeah, it's kind of weird to be in a live event really live without sweatpants on at home, right? Yeah, so I hope we can get used to that. Yeah, it's great to be here. As you heard, my name is Richard. I'm one of the founders of iCombine, and I want to make a kind of interactive presentation with you guys because I'm coming from the product development perspective. So I'm not a techie. I actually have a good background in HR, and when I see a problem, I always want to know what's the solution. I don't want to know, well, maybe sometimes I want to know what the technique is behind that, but I'm a problem solver, right? As product owners should be. So, and my big question is, do we really need artificial intelligence to produce smart HR solutions? Well, let's see. I want to discuss this with you today, actually. What iCombine is doing basically, we establish a workforce management solution for very, very human-centric and also flexible organizations. And when we started our journey as a company, we created for us a vision how the future of work should look like, especially what it should look like to work in a future-oriented organization. And what came first into our mind was we want transparent organizations. As employees, we want to know what's going on within our organization. What are the products we are currently developing? Who are we working with in teams? What are the capabilities of my colleague 3 doors apart from me? A lot of organizations today are not transparent. They have silos and they keep people apart from each other. This is not the future, in my perspective. Second of all, we see that a lot of organizations will become more and more project-oriented. That means you will have something like a gig economy within an organization. And that will work when you have assignments or tasks, and people are like free radicals within the organization, and they basically connect to any assignment that matches their own individual capabilities and interests and potential. And then they can contribute, and after that assignment, they will search for something else. And there are organizations that already work like this. So third, we say people will work cross departments. People from different domains will come together because, as we know, when people from different perspectives look at one problem, they will create much better solutions than only people who come from one point of view. Number 4, we want to contribute to more self-organization. So when you know what's going on in your organization, you can collaborate with anybody who you want to collaborate with. And then you can also take the steering wheel for yourself and steer your own career through your organization. What happens today in organizations that don't enable their people to self-steer their career? They leave, exactly. So self-organization is key, in my perspective. And last but not least, we want to help people to continuously develop within their organization, to find new people they can work with, to find new projects, new roles, to enhance, because if they don't, they'll leave. Exactly. So our product right now is mainly used by project-oriented organizations. For example, let's say IT software development companies, right? There you have the constant challenge to assign people to projects and to project roles so that the client is happy. And I want to do something with you guys. I want to think about the question, do we need actually AI for that? Or is this something that we can solve with a pen and a paper? Some organizations do. They have large Excel tables, but from a certain point on, it gets kind of fuzzy. And the magic number that I see is around 50 people. When you have more than 50 people with a bunch of projects and a lot of roles people are working in, it's difficult. Let's do this. Let's separate the room into the 4 stakeholders that we are working with at iCombine. So I would say everybody up front, you are clients, okay? You are the client of an IT software development company. Then everybody in the second row, and some people sitting there, you are the employees, okay, of this IT software development company. Next row, you are project managers and HR. Why project managers? Because mostly project managers are using our software to identify the right people. And then everybody in the back, we have a lot of C-level people today. You are the C-levels or maybe the owners of the company. So let's start with the clients. What makes you happy?
I want my product delivered on time with the right quality and without any impediments, and ideally with less cost than expected.
Wonderful, that's the perfect answer. So you want to have a good team that is working for you at this IT software development company. As soon as you articulate your needs, you ideally want the team to start the next day to work on your product. You want to have it delivered in time, and it should be of high quality. And of course, you want to have a good consulting service on the way. Perfect. Let's go to the second group, the employees. May I ask you, what makes you happy as an employee in an organization?
I want to learn. I want to feel valued. I want my team members to be fun. And I want to feel like I'm learning new skills that make me grow.
Perfect, thank you. 2 perfect answers already. So yeah, you want to feel recognized. You want to have the feeling that people who somehow organize your work know what you're capable of, what your potentials are, and you want them to put you in a team of people where you can grow and contribute to something bigger. Yes. Let me quickly show you how that works in iCombine. iCombine works with an interview. So basically what an organization is doing, they predefine all the relevant skills for their organization. Those can be hard skills, soft skills, characters, hobbies, favorite colors, animals, you name it, doesn't matter. This is like a tree structure. And this converts into an interview where people simply click through. So you don't need buzzwords, you don't need to come up with tags. You know, maybe you are using sales to describe yourself, and you're using key account management. I'm using the German word. Nobody knows what to search for. That's the typical LinkedIn problem. So for that reason, we work with this predefinition of skills, for example, and then people can self-assess. The self-assessment can then be validated later on. This will create highly structured and standardized skill profiles, and they are 100% comparable. So no need for AI so far, but let's see. Let's go to the project managers. Who wants to be the project manager with his needs or wants? What about you? So as a project manager, what makes you happy?
If we talk about workforce management, I would like to have a good forecast. So this is maybe where analytics might come in handy, because usually forecasts do not turn out to be true. And yeah, I would also like to have the employees less flexibility so I can plan accordingly who's working at what days, what clients he's on.
Cool. Okay, so you need a good overview of who's available, who's skilled to fulfill the client demands, and you want to know who I can plan with, basically. Yes, exactly. So what the project manager needs to do is he needs to convert the information that the client gives him into the needs for his team, right? The clients that we work with, they are very capable of doing so, but we see that there might be an issue in the future. So right now, what a project manager is doing is this: he's using the same interview as the employee. He selects or she selects as a combination of different criteria that are relevant for project roles. So, for example, here we are staffing an HR consultant, a change consultant in the HR change project. And what iCombine does right now, it shuffles all the people within my organization according to fit, from 100 to 0%. So I always see who's the best fit. And when I switch to the timeline, I can see who's available. And since I can actually staff people to project roles with an iCombine, I can see who's available, who's not. And who could I maybe take off one project role to put that person in the new project role. So last but not least, the C levels. Let me see. Do you want to be our C-level representative?
Oh, thank you.
What makes you happy?
Yeah, I think it's a faster speed up and volume to finish the project. So make the client happy and the employer don't need to always over the work. But speed up is the volume, the final result, the best result.
Maybe you want to give to the star on the side. Do you have anything to add?
Well, I will be happy if all the others are happy.
Okay, wonderful. So I would add to that you want to make your organization future-proof. So you want to be ready to whatever kind of new challenge you want to tackle. So that means you need to have an overview of all the skills within your organization, about all the utilizations that you have, and then you want to make up your mind, how can I optimize? How can I initiate training? What kind of skills do I need to hire for? Do I need to plan in a different way? Because we always, we plan less time or too little time and actually always need more. So this is what the C level will make happy. Predictability of the future success of the company. So in a nutshell, just to summarize this, what our technology is capable of right now, and we're working with statistical methods, we have proprietary algorithm. Our technology right now can match employees to roles in training. It can create skill clusters based on roles and then assign people to it. It can propose new colleagues to you for, with different or with maybe similar skill sets so that you can exchange knowledge. And it can identify skill gaps and then propose training and recruiting. This is the status quo. Now here comes the question. Where do you see limits of this approach?
Just one curiosity I have, one curiosity I have is, what about people that assess themselves worse than other people? So I think there's a level of confidence in the assessment. How do you deal with that?
No, it's still working. So yeah, that's a big issue, right? For example, we see statistically that women usually tend to, assess themselves not as good as men, although they're on the same level. Here we are working right now with validation, for example, by your superior. And what we want to do in the future is that you have peer assessments. So for example, let's imagine we three are working in a project, and after the project is done, we each assess our skills. And then you have the self-assessment, you have a peer assessment, and then maybe you have the managing director assessment, and then maybe the reality is somewhere in the middle. Yeah, but that's an issue. You're right. What kind of other limits do you see right now in the software? Yeah, right now.
I think it's like optimized or can be only useful if you have the current staff of the company, maybe more than 50 people. I mean, it doesn't make sense to use it all the idea or 20 because people for complicated.
Yeah, you're right. It probably makes only sense when you are at least 50 people. I mean, our first client started with 35, but yeah, it's probably the magic area. Other opinions? Where are the limits of this approach right now? Okay, I will tell you what my limit is that I see. We are working with very, very structured data. But what happens if we want to use other data sources that are completely unstructured? Can we make up our mind about it and then maybe fuel our software with it?
This is what you use the
Exactly. Now it becomes. Let's think about new use cases for iCombine that could be powered by AI. So if you were a magician in your IT software development company, and you can make a wish either as employees or as our clients' employees, project managers or C-level, what kind of capability would you wish for?
I think I would wish that based on the old project, the software will decide which employees will be suitable for the next project.
Very nice, I like this idea. So he said, based on past projects, I want to have some kind of assessment that tells me, well, this person is capable or it would be good fit for the next project role because of the past assignments. Yeah, and maybe the description of the project or maybe the feedback of the client or whatever. Very good idea. Yeah. What else? Other ideas?
I would like to incorporate new skills. I would like to incorporate new skills that I want to learn for growth. So maybe be assigned based on things I want to learn, not just things I'm capable of.
Yeah. You can do that right now already in the software. We have this, I think I was showing it to you. When you do the self-assessment, you have this little hat. With this little hat, you can indicate that you want to learn something in this field or for the skill. So people could search for people, like the project manager could search for employees that want to become better in a certain skill, or maybe have no competency, but want to learn something. Okay, other ideas? In the back?
Yeah, I would just to get a direct matching between the project managers and the employees and getting rid of the HR department.
Mm-hmm. So right now there is no HR department actually within the process of iCombine, but I want to take this idea and play it a little further. Maybe I don't want to have the project manager anymore. Maybe I have somebody from the sales team sitting with my client, and the client says, well, I need a team and they need to be capable of doing this and that and this. And then the sales guy is like, well, I have no idea how I could, how I should separate this into different roles and what kind of skills I need in this role. But maybe I can just take all of these skills, put it into iCombine, and then iCombine will tell me, based on this combination of skills that you need, we suggest 3 roles with the following skills. This would be something that's very nice. Yeah. I think you were the next one.
Yeah, C-level, I want to see blind spots in terms of what kind of skills are missing in the company and looking probably if it's matched into comparison to what skills are mostly demanded by the project managers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is kind of possible already, but I think could be done in a better way. Yeah.
Yeah, I also have something. It's also based on someone also recommend something based on the previous project. There would be a recommendation of which employee must work together, which employee try to avoid working together, because sometimes people like to work as like people.
Yeah.
Maybe that be like instead of those that's possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is where as a former HR person, I was like, but then, there could be a lot of bias because of the nose factor. You just like some people, but maybe technically or in an objective way, other people would be a better fit. But we know that this is always an issue. Some people just like to work with each other or sit next to each other or, yeah, so definitely, that's a good idea. Any other idea? Last idea, maybe.
If you only look at the skills, then you probably lose the ability to look at the cognitive diversity of the team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is a topic. You're right. Currently, for the clients that we're working with, it's not an issue they would like to solve with the software for the time being. But maybe it will happen. I know that there are other solutions that more look at the also cognitive side, or maybe just only at the personality traits. Then they combine people. But here, and especially in this project-oriented environment, it's very, very important that you for example, also show your client those are the 5 people that will now work on your project. And here are their CVs generated from my combine, for example. Cool. So thank you very much for these ideas. Of course, I was talking to my CTO about this, and we made up our mind about possible use cases for AI. So I guess the first one is kind of interesting when you want to take other sources besides the self-evaluation. So for example, allow me as an employee to scan my resume, put a cover letter into the software, and then automatically recognize all the texts, classify them into skills and certifications and experience automatically. And from that, I want to create a search profile and be suggested to matching projects. That would be one thing that our software right now cannot do, but probably would be able to do that via AI. Number 2, we already have that, suggest new projects based on the past experience. Number 3, as an employee, or maybe as a, let's say, sales guy or project manager, I want to create a search profile based on speech recognition and suggest matching people. For example, I have Alexa and I say, hey, I combine to look for a JavaScript developer with 2 years of experience. Maybe I don't know what kind of skill levels people have as a JavaScript developer with 2 years of experience. Okay, I would know. And number 4, we already have that. I have 20 skills. I have no ideas how to separate that into roles, put it into iCombine, and here I go. So yeah, this is the future outlook. We are a small but vibrant startup here in Berlin. And if you want to know more about the future of work, I also have a meetup group with 3,000 people here in Berlin and monthly events. You can sign up for it. And if you also believe that collaboration is the key to the future, then let's team up and make the world a better place. Thanks.
Do you think that people that like each other work better together?
Do I think that personally?
Or did you guys investigate that? Because then maybe it's something to incorporate.
Yeah, of course, people that like each other will probably have a quicker way of starting. Before, maybe we don't know each other, we have to get to know each other, find a common way of communication before we can actually be productive. So I guess there is probably scientific proof to that. And yeah, good hint. I will do some research on that.
I mean, it's super problematic. But
yeah, it is. Yeah. It can prevent people from working together just because, we maybe have a mate and that mate doesn't want to be alone. So you're always working with that person, but actually the other person would be a better fit for the next project. Yeah, I see that issue. Other questions?
I think one of the important things is also how does it know how many people from, say you have multiple, say they might have the same skill set, but you need multiple people because of the timeline involved. How does it figure out that aspect as well? And also related to that, how do you handle seniority? So if you just have a team full of junior people, the project manager might just be able to kick them around, but it's not the best way scenario. So you have to make sure that they feel like they're supported as well.
Yeah. So this is right now a translation task done by the project manager or herself. So when I'm staffing a team, of course, I look at my match list, right, that I was just showing here. So I have my match list from 100% to 0%. I check out the timeline, I see who's available, and then probably I staff my best available person. Maybe I also decide that I have to remove somebody from another project because I think that 2 or 3 people from in the same role, but with different seniority levels, would be a pretty good fit with each other. And yeah, so as I said, this is right now a manual thing, and the companies that we work with, they have the people that work there, they know how to do that. But possibly at one time we will, be working with companies who don't, and this is the time when we need somebody who realize the AI can combine. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks so much.
And now I would switch over to our last speaker who's patiently waiting online here. Let me just switch technology. So, Michael, let's get you on full screen. Here we go. So we can see you. Can we also hear you? Can you say some words?
You can probably also hear me,
Excellent.
and I can hear myself.
Excellent, even. So I think Michael is coming from Grapple. I would say thanks so much for waiting so long and joining our event. Michael is actually we're kind of discussing coming over to Fürth, but then from Fürth to Berlin, but then we decided, you know what, this is like, we've been using technology the last 2 years and working remotely. Why not trying this one? And so I'm really happy you accepted the invitation. Thanks for coming. And yeah, over the stage is yours, sort of virtually.
Yuri, basically, thanks for the invitation. Usually you do not start a presentation with asking for a favor, but in this context, as for the last 25 minutes, I had the pleasure to have a view on Richard's belly. Yeah, thanks. So mostly it's a phrase, but this time I'm really happy to see you, Richard, against your belly. It was an absolute pleasure to enjoy this for 20 minutes. And now it's also it's very beautiful to also look at some faces. Yuri, thanks for the invitation. I now have the pleasure that I'm in a situation that the 3 keynote speakers before already had a lot of intelligent insights and explained a lot about technology. So therefore, I would just say I skipped the PowerPoint presentation so that you can see me on the screen and can listen to my very beautiful Franconian accent. And we will then go through the technology, and we hopefully have enough time to answer all of the questions. So first of all, my name is Michael. I'm the founder of Grapple, founded Grapple 3 years ago after I sold a recruitment agency. So I somehow know both sides, the HR side and also the technology side. A topic no one of you was speaking about so far was the reason why AI should really be implemented within the human resource domain. Human resources is not really well known as a driver of innovation or a driver of disruptive change in general. When you would have a dark humor, then you could say human resources, when you get there, you have been working in a huge corporate, you've been in project management, and then maybe your performance was not the best, and afterwards the company said, okay, let these guys write some contract and some certificates, and then they can hide behind that administrative wall. And this is a bit like how human resources is built today. When you take a look at diversity, equality in Germany, then very famous business nations like Uganda or Albania are way ahead before us. In Germany, we still have a situation where 10% of our CEOs are named Michael, Christian, Thomas, or Alexander, and 8.8% are women. So we have a gender pay gap of 21%, what says women basically work until midst of March without any payment, even if they have the same qualities like men have. Of course, this is not the only social demographic group in Germany that has some problems and is somehow discriminated. When your name is not really sounding German, then you also have a 20% lower chance to even get invited to a job interview. So, long story short, when you want to be successful on the German job market, then you better be a heterosexual, white, Christian male with a few gray hairs. That is good for me because I fulfill all these criteria, but I think this couldn't be the aim we are striving for. And I mean, why are we still facing a situation like this in a country like Germany? It's basically because we are the result of our biases and stereotypes. And I was asking Yuri for our meeting today, Yuri, what do you think? The audience, could they decide better than artificial intelligence? And Yuri said, Michael, this is the most stupid question I've ever heard. That is the most intelligent audience you could ever face, and they will, of course, decide better. And Yuri made me curious, so we need to challenge this right now. So the question is if you are as biased as most of the human resource professionals, and a few of you need to help me to figure this out. Mostly it's the first row, because I mean, I can see only a few of you, and therefore you need to help me with that experience. So, when we think of a judge, a female judge, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? And we start from the left, okay, we start from the left side, the guy with the white shirt and the t-shirt on, can only see the half of you, but it would be really nice if you could say, yeah, exactly. Johannes, you were looking at the right person. So therefore, when you take a look to the right side, the guy in the shirt, yes, exactly.
Do you hear me, or do I have to take this one?
I hear you perfectly. But take the microphone, maybe not everyone else is also hearing you.
If you ask me for a female judge, I would say I would trust her more to be a good judge than a male judge, to be honest.
What is a good judge? What describes a good judge to you?
Somebody that's really taking no sides and deciding on the facts he can handle.
Okay, thanks for that. Please pass the microphone to your neighbor. The first attitude or first attribute that you think of when thinking of a judge.
The first part for me was, will people actually hear her out, or will people be serious about what she says? Like, will people respect her point of view?
Think so, because if she has the power to, but okay, so what is the attribute behind it? Is it seriousness? Is it professionalism? What is it?
Professionalism.
Okay, thanks. Next one.
First attribute that I attributed to that part was empathy.
Empathy. Maybe two more. I can't probably see the next one, but just pass the microphone. Pick someone's up to you.
Fairness.
Very good. Fairness, okay. One last one.
Well, it seems to be passed around over the most stuff. So I guess I'll just take it. I think the other one I think is important is trying to be as unbiased as possible. You know, we talk about everybody having biases, but I think it's for a judge they have to be able to reflect that, because they'll get called on it right away if they're not.
Okay. So thanks for sharing this. So as a summary, we have the judge as a person who is very empathic, who is professional, serious, and basically not concentrating on bias, but on the facts that are given, right? So this is the description of a judge that you just came up with. The University of Tel Aviv made a study to prove your assumptions. They wanted to know if judges really aren't biased, and if they are really deciding on facts. And the test was, they had 1,200 judges, and they needed to decide if someone can get out of prison or needs to stay in prison. And before they were making these decisions, they have been asked two further questions. The first one was, are you hungry? And the second one was, are you tired? And they did this experiment from 8 to 12 in the morning. And at 8 in the morning, not a single of these judges said they are hungry or tired. What do you think? How many, what was the percentage of people getting out of prison at 8 in the morning, or from 8 to 9?
Very high. Higher than rate.
Did not really understand it. Johannes, could you please repeat it for me?
I think the general answer was it was higher in the morning.
Yeah.
Than at the point of time where they were more hungry and more tired. So yes, will also be my answer.
That is a very good answer. And at 11, it was about 80% that said they are tired or hungry. What do you think? How high was the percentage of people getting out of prison at 11:30? From these professional, serious, and empathic judges?
Very low and 20%.
Could you please repeat it? Did not fully understand you.
I said the words were very low, 20%, so right in the upper, in the down quartile. So in the
Okay. Any further guesses?
I think this is only from the experience or the storytelling to make a judgment how the people's personality, how to think about the fact of their emotion. If the people that are active, or they can be feel better. If negative, always feel. So this is kind of personality judgment, you know?
Fortunately, I also didn't fully understand it acoustically, but what I understood was that it is a topic in regards to personality and how active is someone, so I didn't really understand it.
Try to speak very loud into the mic.
Okay, for example, if the people really want this job and like this job, so you always active to thinking, even very hard. You also thinking, okay, I like and I'm not very lonely. Also together with the team, even so, this is active way of working. These people, so when you're asking question, he give you the active answer. So this is your question is not a real ask people hungry or lonely. You want from the question to get the answer. How is the people character? He is really active for work or not? It's right to
Yes,
understand.
you saying what you mean is the question they ask may be irrelevant to their decision.
Okay.
Right.
So maybe I'm lonely. I think I'm not lonely, but maybe I'm lonely. This is kind of the or your activity.
Yes, okay.
Nick, would you, so you could repeat it or could sum it up, then I will reply to it.
Yeah, it was.
All the people understand my questions.
Michael only hears from this microphone, so you gotta need to.
Can you, or maybe you understand me, or you can explain
So I'm not 100% sure if I understood you right. What I understand is that what Michael is trying to refer to is that there's different aspects, and Michael, you probably can explain that better than me, but that kind of feed into decision making, and then one is how fit and how biased you are, but being active and being engaged are also kind of characteristics that play into this. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. But I could go on. So I think that the question to your last question was that the 11:30 guys were probably in the lower quarter, so it's something around 20%. I would have said something around 40, but what's the survey saying?
The survey basically says 0%. So we are from 65% of people getting out of the prison to 0%. That basically says these empathic and fact-based, not biased judges make decisions based on if they are hungry or if they are tired. And that is basically something, it's called correspondence bias, what means if there are certain attributes, then we describe people in a certain way. It's the same with doctors, it's the same if you're wearing a suit, what is also making you look more professional. And even if you know that you are biased, it's really a long way to get rid of them. And this is why we are making decisions often based on sympathy or often based on our assumptions, what are not really facts. And when you go further, then the job market in Germany has a few more obstacles you need to get rid of. For instance, only 30% are working in a job that is really related to their education. We have a high rate of competencies and jobs in general that are losing relevance due to digitalization, automatization, globalization, and so on. So when you think of autonomous driving, think of taxi drivers or topics like this. So you all know these Oxford studies of 59% of all our competencies are getting all of this. So the question basically is, what is really future relevant? What competency is relevant for myself, for the organization I'm working in, and how could I make decisions that are not really based on my own biases, stereotypes, and prejudices? And this is what we're trying to do. We help companies like big corporates, the DAX 40 companies, until professional football clubs, NGOs, and so on, to understand how do you build aptitude diagnostics to have or to make better human resource decisions, but also have a strong focus on diversity and fairness in general. Therefore, we developed two products. The technology behind it was very well explained from the speakers that were on stage before me. One topic is the competency ontology, and the basic idea behind this to transfer someone from competency profile A into competency profile B. And that sounds a bit unspectacular, but when you think of the professions behind it and how many people are, for how many people this is really relevant, then you will get a different perspective on it. There's my by far preferred example is from a competency from Bielefeld. They are helping you if you want to bake a cake or something at home. So just imagine you're at home and your wife's mother is coming to visit you and you want to impress her. So you're trying to make that cake. And then, unfortunately, a very horrific mistake happens. You put too much milk within that baking powder. But don't be worried, there is a solution. You could turn around the package and could call the call center. You could call the guys from Dr. Oetker and ask them, guys, I'm really nervous, I'm excited. My wife's mother is coming over and I put too much milk into the baking powder. What should I do? I think this is what all of you would do when you would have a problem. You would probably call a call center and would have to build or something. Of course, a joke. And nevertheless, Dr. Oetker still had 180 call center agents sitting in a huge office and waiting for someone calling them, and they were there for helping them what to do when there is too much milk in my baking powder. And so the question for us was, what to do with these call center agents. Dr. Oetker is still a company that is owned by a family. It's a huge corporate, and that plan was not, okay, we do not need that many call center agents. They could scroll through Facebook, take a look on Instagram, and then there are still 7 hours left of their working day, and they did not want to fire them. So for us, there was the challenge how to transform these employees so that they can work purposefully and also efficient for the company. And when we now take a look on what is a call center agent really doing the entire day, then we can get back to the example I gave you. When I call him or her, then I'm basically nervous, I'm angry, I'm somehow emotional. And his main focus or her main focus should be to get rid of the problem. And when he or she can do so, then I would at least expect to escalate it to another level, like first level support, second level support, and so on. So what a call center really needs, emotional intelligence, getting rid of obstacles, and making sure that there is a process that is really taking place. This is basically also the job description of a call center agent, of a Scrum Master. So call center agent and Scrum Master have very comparable competencies. At least when you take it from a very bird's eye view. But the problem is, what do you think? How many call center agents would have the self-confidence to think that they could work in a job that is very closely related to software development? Not a single one. And most of them didn't even know what a call center, what a Scrum Master is, or how they could develop it. What our technology is doing we recognize the competencies, so they can, for instance, just upload their CV. They could connect over an API with their LinkedIn profile and adjust their competencies. And we are helping them to figure out how they could internally, that means within the company, transfer to a position that is future relevant for them. And the basic idea behind this is to discover hidden career paths, because as I said, most of the call center agents did not even know that a job like a Scrum Master exists, and if they knew it, then they wouldn't have the self-confidence to apply or to develop in that position. How we are doing this? When you want to make these calculations, then you of course need a very broad database and a lot of information to do so. So to really discover the future relevance, we have different sources of data. The first source are academic papers. That means we are crawling databases like ResearchGate or Microsoft Academics. One contains 400 million research papers. On the other hand, we are crawling job postings. That means vacancies from all over the world. And we are crawling social media data, especially the job-related social media. That means basically Xing and LinkedIn. And there is a huge set. So we want to understand what are really relevant research topics, what competencies are closely related to it. Therefore, we are also using an ontology. And the taxonomy underneath it is the ESCO database. ESCO is basically defined from the European Union. It defines 40,000 and something competencies that are the parent-child relationship, and that makes it easy for non-technical human resource experts to really understand these aspects. Like if we are talking about if Microsoft Office and MS Office is the same, we would all agree on. For a machine, it's not that easy to recognize that these two are the same competencies, and over the ESCO taxonomy, we can make it easier to semantically search within the database. So the idea underneath it is we have a huge set of data and we make it accessible very easily for the users. That means in that context, the employees, so that they can discover their hidden career paths, and we help them to internally move into jobs that are future relevant and fit to their professional needs, but also to their personal requirements. And we're taking a look on 4 different competency levels. First one is, of course, hard skills. Second one is methodical competencies. That means competencies you can use in different domains like project management or Scrum, what we've been talking about. And the remaining 2 topics are soft skills and personality traits. This is basically it. From a technological side, as I told you, it's a broad set of data. It is organized over an ontology. We're using the same NLP models to understand topics like Toledo did. Therefore, I don't think it makes sense to tell you exactly the same twice. And that is basically it from my side. So if you have any further questions, I'm also very happy to answer them for you.
You didn't hear the applause. No, any questions in the room to Michael? Go ahead.
I'm naturally interested in a question because this touches both of our business fields. How do you get data that's not there? Of people that have no profile, no CV, and no LinkedIn? Because I would reckon that this is quite often the case, as with the clients we work with. So what's your process of getting data that you actually would need but not have initially?
Yeah, especially in the blue collar context, that is a topic that is very often existing also for our side. And then it is the question of providing, on the one hand, a front end that is very easily usable, and on the other hand, of making suggestions. So if someone has chance to just come up with a CV, he can upload his CV or he needs to generate it. And then there are always suggestions for certain competencies and a little forced choice questionnaire to come to the idea, what are your personal interests, what are your hobbies, because we also learned that people mostly, if you ask them what is your job or what are you able to do, then they tell you something about competencies or how their job is called. but they would never say something about if they, I don't know, took care about family member, automized their smart home and stuff like this. So we also wanted to take a look on these competencies, and then it basically is a matter of user experience and bringing up an interface that is allowing them to really come up with, with their own competency profile.
Thank you. Can I maybe come forward?
Speaking to the microphone very low.
Yeah.
Don't you also need a very liberal management for these kind of developments to take place at all?
Sorry, I do not understand you in the back over there. So Yuri, maybe you could repeat it for me.
Yeah, I did because I didn't also get time. You just go. Yeah. Thanks.
So for your solution to, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I do hear you.
For your solution to work, don't you also need a very liberal management within a client's company for them to allow this kind of developments to happen at all?
Not really. So it mostly is just a matter of money and efficiency. And when you are when you are facing the challenge or the question, if you need to fire someone or if you develop them internally, then it is more or less easy decision. So we often face in the very beginning of a project, we have discussions with the also a very German thing, the Betriebsrat, because basically when a Betriebsrat is hearing artificial intelligence, I think then they start to get afraid and imagine the white little robot taking away all their jobs and threatening them in their existence. But after that, when the Betriebsrat once recognized that it is about helping their employees to develop within future relevant domains and making sure they can work forcefully for the company, then this is a quite easy thing, and we never had a problem about the liberal management or in general. Hopefully this answers the question.
It does.
From my experience, it's not necessarily liberal, it's more, how much openness and how much resources do you actually have to kind of think about those kind of future-wise topics. Often HR departments are kind of buried in the past and kind of very traditional in that sense. And I think that's more the barrier often that I at least perceive.
Cool. I would absolutely agree on that now.
Well, then I would say another big applause to Michael. Thanks for joining. Super interesting. Really sad you're not here now because we would have continued to have to talk with you over some beers and some leftovers of the food. Anyway, with that, I would say let's conclude for today. It's anyway late already. Thanks for coming once again. Really enjoyed. Also special thanks to all the speakers. Really interesting, Michael. We have 2 more AI Mondays lined up, actually next Monday and the Monday after next Monday. Both in Leipzig and in NRW, both online, so you can actually also join them if you want. Leipzig doesn't actually have a topic, so they have a few very interesting speakers, relaxed days, some more. And then NRW is actually focusing on sustainability, so AI and sustainability, which is, I would definitely join that one. It's so interesting. They also have some quite interesting speakers lined up. So if you have nothing to do on Friday after Monday afternoon, make my channel partners over there happy and join them. And yeah, and then I would say let's have some leftovers and some drinks, and then thanks for coming. Also for being here. Thanks so much.